Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thanks for joining us for Stars of Franchising.
Get ready for a roller coaster ride through the world of franchising as we bring you the best stories of inspiration and entrepreneurial grit and turning dreams into franchise realities.
That's right, Vinny. From emerging to global brands, we'll chat with the genius minds behind the magic. All brought to you by the Tariq Farid Franchise Institute at Babson College. I'm Ab.
And I'm Vinny. Now, buckle up for some serious inspiration.
In this episode of Stars of Franchising, we sit down with Colleen Upham, president and co-founder of Deer, an all-natural deer, tick, and mosquito control franchise. Welcome, Colleen.
Hey, Ab, good to see you.
You guys are redefining tick and deer control. I'm really excited about all you've done and as a brand and the growth, and we're so excited to have you here at Babson. And what we like to do is start with a little bit about yourself and your purpose and why, and what calls you to do what you do, Colleen.
Sure. Well, my purpose and why to save the world all naturally from deer, ticks, and mosquitoes. Well, people's landscapes from deer. But I ended up joining an Deer. When my husband first started it, he had someone that was working for him, and to be honest, I got laid off from my job, and she found a full-time job, and it just worked, and I slid right in. And so I've been with my husband for work-wise, for 7 or 8 years now, maybe a little more.
And still going at it as a team.
Yes.
Right? I love it. Well, tell us about the early days, the vision, Kurt's vision, or how it started. It's a great story, and you started with a really big purpose and why, but you're actually addressing it. But how did that start for Kurt?
So my husband grew up just right around here in Weston, and he and his brother had a landscape company. He's an avid outdoorsman, really loves deer. I mean, really loves deer and the science of deer. And so they would go on to properties and do their landscaping and mow the lawn, trim the trees, weed the gardens. And they'd pull out and they'd be like, oh, shoot, we forgot to do the deer control. So it was an afterthought, but it was something that always sort of stuck in my husband's head. And he parted ways with his brother and was working with a big landscape design firm. And while he was working there, he went into the basement secretly and started mixing his own concoction.
Love it.
And at the time, our girls were just born. They were twin girls, babies, and we had a puppy, so things had to be all natural. So he just ended up testing it out on old clients, landscape clients, and found that it worked.
I love it. It's a combination of his passion for deer, which started when for him? I think he said when he was a little kid.
Yeah, like third grade or something.
And then the pain point of raising the twins, the dog, and the need to have something all natural, I think is a wonderful example of seizing an opportunity to solve something.
Yeah. And I think the greatest thing about it is he wanted to do it full time in 2008, and you and I are both old enough to know what was going on economically in 2008.
Downturn.
And he said, I will do anything. I'll work at Home Depot to supplement my income. And it turns out the phone never stopped ringing, so it worked out great. And we've since made it through that economic downturn, COVID. So it's really sort of a resistant business.
Yeah, when you have great vision and leader, and you're willing to innovate like you guys have, and there's no great time to start. Some of the best businesses, right?
Yeah.
Are in those really low points. Well, let's talk about your career a little bit and that transition. You've had a career in corporate, Thompson Financial, if I'm correct. What lessons did you learn or skills and did you bring to Deer in the early days and now that transition? Because as you know, franchisees often come from corporate environments, et cetera. But anyway, tell us a little about your background.
I mean, I think what really helped me was I started with a company during the dot-com boom. Okay. So it was a startup similar to Deer was a startup, and I was in sales. And you really we were taught to be scrappy and cold call and do whatever you had to do to make the sale. And I think just that persistence and perseverance really stuck with me, and I brought that into Oh Dear. Even when I wasn't really working with Kurt and he was just launching, I was just like, I was always told you got to spend money to make money. So it was like, all right, well, we'll take whatever money we have and send out these postcards and see what happens. And, it just worked.
And you're still trying, I know, to have your franchisees do that, right?
Correct.
That you have to, you have to market the brand.
Yep.
Which I think a lot of people underestimate, right? Would you agree?
For sure.
Franchisees?
Yes.
So, that early experience at the startup helped you. You didn't begin franchising right away. So talk about the growth of the company, because we have a lot of conversations here at the Institute and at Babson with entrepreneurs who are considering franchising. Some want to do it right away. Talk to us about why'd you wait, or even how'd you get on that pathway to franchising to scale?
Well, I mean, to be honest, it sort of happened by happenstance.
Yeah, how so?
Well, he started in 2008, and the technology back then wasn't so great. So he was, writing notes and going out to clients physically to say, okay, this is an acre property. We're going to quote you this much, blah, blah, blah. And then he'd come back, and then he'd go do the service. And it was really a lot of work.
Manual.
And yes, and between, the yard signs and then definitely the word of mouth, he started to get calls for the Cape, for the South Shore, for the North Shore. And there certainly was a demand, especially for the all-natural piece. And at one point, we got to a point where, like, how in the world are we going to grow this or fund it organically?
Yeah.
And he happened to meet a guy, an old friend, in the parking lot at the supermarket. And they were talking about it, and he said, well, maybe you should think about franchising, and gave him Suzanne Cummings, shout out.
Yeah. Your attorney?
Yes, still our attorney today. And she, did a few ride-alongs with Kurt and went through the process and said, yes, this is definitely franchisable. And really, that's how we, but we also, Kurt's big on helping other people, and he's happy to give others the opportunity to, start a business and make money just the same way as he did. So,
well, two things jump out at me on that, which is seek out others, and whether you seek them out or you find them. And she has obviously done a lot in franchising that can give you a view and from their experience. That's great. And then I noticed about Kurt and you that, you care about your franchisees' success, and I've seen it in action, right? That to make millionaires, is others have said, of your franchisees. That's a special thing for a franchisor to be able to do. Good stuff. So many founders talk about a leap of faith moment, Colleen. Was there a leap of faith moment where you and Kurt realized we've got something here? Maybe it was after that, or you had started the franchise, that we can really grow this from that first franchise to what you're at now, 21?
21.
Congrats. So was there a moment where you knew, hey, this thing can scale?
I think we're kind of... Yes, we had those moments. I don't know exactly when it was, but I think we're really starting to feel it now. This goes on to other questions, but at one point we took a pause in our business. We really realized that we had to get our back office and systems, straightened out, which we did, and then we started to slowly build a team around it, and that's starting to help us grow.
Well, let's talk about that, because a lot of brands, they fall and they stumble and they don't recognize that, and they're more focused on number of units, but they can't support it. So what made you realize that, hey, let's take that pause, because it's very, very intentional, and I love this strategy, and get an infrastructure in place? Because I don't think a lot of people have a sense of what you need to build. Talk a little bit about what caused it, and then what you felt was needed to support franchisee growth.
Yeah, I mean, whether it be the CRM and the invoicing system that we use, and just feedback from our franchisees. And at the time, we had a couple of tough franchisees that are no longer with us, which is fine. And we said, hold on a minute here. We have to do a better job of onboarding and training, and get these systems in a better place, and then start to bring people in that do a better job at that than we personally do. I mean,
Which is tough sometimes for entrepreneurs, right? Let's figure out what we're good at, and maybe we
You
need
definitely
some
have
other...
to surround yourself with people
Right.
that know what they're doing.
Good.
More than we do.
So you've described your leadership style, I've heard, and kind of a cheer them on approach. How have you maintained that approach, or how do you instill a culture when you're in multiple states and you've got multiple franchisees? How do you do that?
Well, I just try to be available for these folks, and I show up at trainings. It's important that they get to know Kurt and me. We're part of the onboarding process. When they come up to Wayland, we take them out to dinner and we spend a lot of time with them. So I want them to feel comfortable if they're having a problem, if they're having an issue, to have them pick up the phone and call us. And then when they, we just want to celebrate all their successes.
Well, I know I've heard you both say it, and that's a great example. And for potential franchisees that are listening and franchisors to build that relationship from the very, very start, right? I think Kurt had mentioned, would you want to have a beer or share a meal with this person? Not that you have to be exact, but you have to kind of...
Well, and to be honest, back to Suzanne for 1 second.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the first things she said to us. Like, before you said, let someone become a franchisee, take them out to dinner, see how they treat other people.
Yeah.
And that's super important, especially in home services.
Super important. Now, I know we've talked a little bit about it. I know you both are focused on creating successful franchisees, and you've had, as all brands do, some that have worked out, some that haven't. How do you balance really trying to have them be successful with your various stages, and even now maintaining consistency and a system, right? And you may have some folks who think, I can do it my way. How do you balance that as you're growing?
Good question. I mean, I like to leave a lot of that up to Todd, who's the head of operations, and he, manages, sort of the current group of franchisees, but even bringing on the newer folks. What we try to do before we even award a system, a location to someone, I like to think that we get to know them pretty well.
Yeah.
So, they meet with Jeremy, and then when they're close to being awarded a location, they meet with, my group. There's 6 of us on our team, and we all meet with the person. And after we pepper them with questions, they pepper us with questions, and then after that. So I hope we manage that process, even before we award an agreement.
Well, I know you've said don't just select a franchisee if they have only just because they have a pulse.
Right.
Do that through that process, and we're going to circle back to that because I know you've made some changes to the onboarding process and getting to know them. What have you learned about, how you select, the profile of franchisee you want, maybe some traits that the best ones have done that you're trying to identify?
Well, sort of back to that dinner conversation, take someone to dinner. But I feel like since we're doing home services and we're talking to homeowners all the time, they really have to just be a genuinely good person.
Yeah.
I mean, they have to be in their community, I'd say. If they're not already in their community, they have to be willing to, dive in. They've got to put themselves out there and get to know people. If they've already, like being outdoors, that's a positive. I mean, we just brought on a franchisee in Texas that worked for Orvis for 17 years. I mean, that fits. You don't want to profile someone, but that works for us. It's great.
So people understand that may not be familiar with the brand. Talk to us about the customer experience. You mentioned it, and I've driven around with Kurt, and so you're walking on someone's property, right? And you're the expert. Tell us a little bit about that is important for the franchisees to understand.
Sure. I mean, we start with incoming phone calls. They obviously want our service. They obviously want all natural, and we do our very best to get on the phone with every person that calls in. We just don't fire out quotes. And part of the reason for that is because we like to think that we offer a premier service, and we try to give a little bit of education to every person that calls. So everyone is so scared of ticks and mosquitoes, ticks in particular. And, we want them, whether they use Oh Dear, they use a competitor, or they don't use anybody, we want to give them a little tidbit to take away that they can enjoy more time outside without being scared of ticks and mosquitoes. So some form of protection.
So it's educational. So
big time.
Okay. And I, as I mentioned, I went to homes with Kurt. I mean, this is the owner, right? So I think that's a great example that for your franchisees, right? You have to be in the market. You have to be local in the community,
goes
right?
into homes,
And they still say, "There's Mr. Deer."
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk about, your wonderful eco-friendly and the mission, and standards and a process. But I know you've shared in the past that sometimes innovation comes from the market, from the franchisees. How do you balance that? And then if you have any examples of where it worked and didn't work.
Sure. Innovation's kind of a loaded question.
Yes.
Especially now where we have a new location in Idaho.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
That's a plane ride. Let's talk about that.
Big time. And they want to know if our product works against the moose or bear.
Yeah.
And so, you got to figure out how to answer those questions. Right now, we're going to stick with the deer, ticks, and mosquitoes, and rabbits. We're going to have tick and mosquitoes and deer and rabbit. It's very similar. So we're launching that now.
Okay, and that's deer and rabbit to keep them from eating people's landscape.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right.
So
the moose innovation, we're going to put on the back burner.
No, you know what? We don't profess to have all the answers. So the questions and the feedback and the ideas that come from franchisees are fantastic.
Yeah.
We love it. And, the ability to stay local, they can do things like coat drives and our TIC program and TIC 9 program to, stay in their communities.
Yeah. And I love the example of, I think it was in your market or one of the franchisees that was providing either free or education and services to school districts,
Preschools.
right? Preschools.
Yep, we all do that. Yeah. Preschools, we provide free monthly applications to their play yards, because you want them to start the awareness young.
And then that, their parents become aware, right? And and you're doing some good in your community. We hear often, and we try to dispel this myth that, is franchising entrepreneurship, but you clearly, state examples. What do you think of that? It is, right? You're in the market, you're an entrepreneur as a franchisee, or do you feel differently?
Yeah, I mean, Lord knows neither Kurt nor I ran a business before, so I would call it entrepreneurship for sure.
For sure. And for the franchisees, even though they have a playbook, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I can't think of maybe one right now that has run their own business, but they're coming from the corporate world. They're coming from mowing lawns. They all have different backgrounds.
Got it. So I know you've made changes to franchisee support, and you've got changes in technology. Can you talk a little bit about some of those changes and what you're providing now to convince franchisees that they're getting support, or you can help them grow their businesses?
Yeah, we've brought on, over the last year, I brought in an operations person, which was much needed. And we've launched an LMS internally.
Learning management system.
And that's available that's what we use for onboarding as well as in-person training here in Wayland. And then that LMS is also now available to our franchisees so that they can onboard spray techs and things like that. So
great, because you want to have Mr. Deer and that passion and on that expertise to the front line, not even just the franchisee owner, which I think is brilliant.
Exactly.
Great stuff. All right, let's move over to leadership and empowerment. You've received national recognition. The Franchise Dictionary's 50 Women of Wonder. And other awards. What do those awards mean to you?
To be honest, it's nice to be recognized.
It is.
But I will put that blame on my lovely group that I work with. They do these sneaky nominations behind my back.
That is great.
Which I appreciate. Being in the limelight isn't, my thing. Yeah. But I mean, it's nice to be recognized.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff. let's just talk a little bit for you have two twin daughters, and I don't know if is it your sense that franchising is male dominated, but what challenges have you felt as a female entrepreneur, if you have, or any, or what advice would you have for your daughters and others advancing career, not only in franchising but as a leader and a CEO?
I mean, I can't really say that I've felt any pressure. I will say that pest control, you could kind of say, is a little bit male dominated, but I think entrepreneurship's entrepreneurship, and if you're a guy or a gal,
love it.
It doesn't really matter.
I love it, and you become the expert, right? You learn a new craft, and you're helping others. So I think those are traits that serve others well, and it's good to hear. So I see that you recently welcomed the first mother-daughter franchisee in the system. What does the milestone mean to you, and tell us about them?
I love it. They're great.
Yeah.
They're in Ohio, and Jerry and Sarah. And Jerry does have a little bit of a background in franchising, but it's really fun because, honestly, our consumers are mostly women.
Mostly women, okay.
So, I mean, I would love to have more women owners. They're so passionate about this topic, and ticks in particular. It would be fabulous to have more.
And how did how'd they find you? Let's talk about. I know not everyone's familiar with the franchise sales process, but you're beyond New England now a little bit. But how did they find out about you? And
I believe they found us through a broker.
Okay, and did they say, "Hey, this is needed in our community, and we just don't have this," and they felt the passion?
Yes, and for them, it's the deer that are driving.
Okay.
Yep. So we're finding it's interesting. Some of our newer locations, it's the deer driving their business from the outset more than the tick.
More than the tick.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
But the deer is more of a premium service.
For sure.
For you
yes.
guys. Okay.
Yep.
So you've got. I love that we've talked about it in the past. I love your focus on the franchisee profile. We talked a little bit about the avatar.
Yeah.
And that it helps, right? That they're passionate about all natural. They don't have to be, right? Or do you feel now that what you've learned that really does help them be successful because they're talking to the consumers that feel the same way? What's your take on that?
So our owners have to.
Your owners. Like, if you're selecting, and
sure.
Is that...
Interesting that came up as a question recently. I do think it's important that they believe in all natural. We have our group of franchisees right now. They all believe in the mission. It's a great core group of people. So I do think it's pretty important. Because sometimes all natural gets a bad rap in the pesticide industry, so they have to believe in it in order to sell it.
And you're fighting against a very, very large entrenched, not natural,
correct,
offerings. All right. So you talked a little bit about, Colleen, the different profiles of franchisees. Some may have come from corporate. Most, if not all, have not owned a business or been an entrepreneur. Not that you had self-doubt. I know I did when I was, in my entrepreneurial ventures. How do you coach some of these franchisees through the ups and downs? And,
Well, back to your earlier point about marketing, that's probably the biggest hurdle, is to get them to spend that money.
Why is that? Tell us about that.
I think it's, you can talk about, you got to spend this, you got to spend this, you got to spend this through the whole sales process, for lack of a better term. But when it comes right down to it, they don't get it.
Yeah, interesting.
And it is interesting when they do finally do it. And I have a location I can talk about. It took them 2 to 3 months to finally get those postcards out the door. But, oh my gosh. They were psyched when they finally did it.
That's great.
But so I, just try to support them as much as possible. And our franchisees are great, and they're always willing to help out and provide advice. And so I think if they can leverage, my group, as well as their fellow franchisees that have the experience. And that's where they seem to get a lot of validation, is when they hear it from a franchisee.
Right. And for our listeners who are considering becoming a franchisee, it's not just your corporate support, it's the franchisee community, correct?
Correct.
Now, I've always found franchisees, willing to help each other. Hey, do you use the postcards? We don't think they're any good. Why should we, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of them take a lot of time and talk through marketing with, even though we have our own marketing team, a lot of times they go right to a franchisee, and a franchisee that has gained a tremendous amount of knowledge over their tenure here, help them with the marketing as well.
Well, it's interesting that, the owners probably haven't and may not have, dealt with local marketing like that in whatever role. We had it, and Colleen and Kurt and the team were gracious in us to have one of our professors, Gary Otley, create case studies, and I sat in on the first run at the beta teaching it, and there was a lot of questions. These are graduate students. Well, why postcards? They don't make but there's specific reasons why postcards, even though it may quote unquote feel old school, works for your service.
They have worked since day one. And
in the mailbox.
And Kurt and I used to sit down at night and say, okay, this is how much money we have, and we did it twice a year. And granted, the tick and mosquito ones, those things would go out, and at the time it was the ugliest postcard of a tick with a big red circle around it and a line through it. But today we ended up bringing it back and, modernizing it a little bit, but they work.
They work, right.
They work.
And then and I know the team, and you've augmented that, right, with new technology, social media, et cetera, Instagram. So talk to a little bit about what's changed on that front for you and what you're excited about.
Yeah, each location has their own social media page.
Okay.
We encourage people to do their own social media. That's another one that, honestly, you really shouldn't think that much about it. Right. If anybody wants to follow a fun social media page, follow Central Virginia. Central VA, oh dear.
Okay.
He does an awesome job. Right. And so we do social media. We do lawn signs. A lot of guerrilla marketing. Lawn signs, our trucks, word of mouth. And word of mouth is so popular because I will tout every location in their customer service, in their Google reviews.
Right.
So, and all that matters.
It does matter, right?
Yes.
People are going to do their due diligence.
Yes.
So you helped, on community and purpose. You talked about the daycare in the schools, but you helped launch, Take Initiative, Check Kids, Tick, and the Tick Canine program. Tell us a little bit about that and what motivated and inspired you to do that.
Sure. Well, that's really all Kurt.
That's Kurt. Okay.
One day he randomly called years ago and said, I have a great idea. How about if we start a program called Tick? And what happened was one of his friends' kids contracted Lyme disease.
Okay.
And that's how he came up with Take Initiative, Check Kids. And we were already spraying the preschools at that time.
Okay.
And so we just folded the preschool program right under the Tick program. It only made sense. And then a year or two later, we added the 9 for Tick 9. Yeah. So for cats and dogs and pets, we have a tremendous amount of clients that have been clients for a long time, and their kids have grown and are no longer in the house, but they still have their 4-legged family member that they need to take care of and make sure they don't get sick.
And grandkids probably at some point.
Exactly.
Right. So you've said you want families to, quote, enjoy the outdoors safely, unquote, How do you see that mission evolving in today's environment? Is it, as you were, how long's the business been? You've been around
2007.
All right, 2007. So you've been on this journey, as pioneers. What's it like today? How do you see that evolving, and what's exciting future franchisees or new franchisees about it?
I think the all-natural mission. I think you can see just in the news now, they talk about, processed foods and pesticides and things like that. And so I only see the all-natural piece becoming more and more popular, especially with younger generations. So
and they're more, right? They're more, I know I have a 20-year-old. I know she has a pet now, and she's very aware and thinking about it. Yeah, I think it's only gonna be more top of mind, right?
Yes, and those folks that are calling us to be franchisees for that reason.
Yeah. Love it.
They believe in the mission.
So you mentioned Idaho.
Yes.
And you've expanded to other states like Texas and Missouri, correct? Talk to us about, maybe not so much the Idaho example, but have you had to adjust for the different climate regions and how you're looking at that? And were you intentional about those opportunities to test that, or how did you end up there?
Well, they were interested, and they talked about their environment, whether it's the big deer population or the ticks or the mosquitoes. And those locations are newer. However, they've launched successfully. Virginia's launched successfully. Missouri has launched successfully.
Great.
So they have hungrier deer, and Texas might have bigger mosquitoes, but, I think it's something that we'll be able to handle. I mean, where Kurt's always, reading about, well, he knows about how many deer are in the country by state, by county.
And how that's changing.
And how it's changing. Yeah. But also we're in close touch with manufacturers and, the efficacy of different products. So we're actually building sort of more of an integrated pest management program and an arsenal of different products because what might work here in New England might not work as well in Texas. And so we're already starting to think about that. And all our products are still 25B, but some have different potencies.
Gotcha. And so are your franchisees using your Oh Dear branded product? Is that, or you're having it manufactured a formulation, or?
Yeah, we're actually, so as you may recall, that was halted during COVID.
Right.
Because we couldn't get some of the product. So, but we are starting to work on that again.
Great. Gotcha. So, many brands lead with, or many of your competitors have, are chemical based, and you lead with, maybe they lead that with the power of that. You lead with values. How do you communicate that, the formulation or the science, or Kurt? And we've talked about when you hear and you meet Kurt, and it's powerful. How's your brand communication strategy changed, and what are you doing now to have people understand that this is really it's not fake, it's not just words, it's real.
Yeah. So I mean, as we talked about, part of the onboarding process is sales and education for our new franchisees. But also, as I mentioned, we like to talk to everybody. If we can get everybody live on the phone, we talk to them live on the phone. And I don't think there's anything more powerful. Of course, there's a science behind it, but I think our retention rate is very large.
Customers.
Our Google reviews are very strong. And I don't think, if it didn't work, we wouldn't be here today, and we wouldn't be, our system wouldn't grow 20%, every year if it didn't work. So it's working, and we do a really effective job at communicating that to our consumers.
And they stay.
And they stay
and we
for
talk,
a long time.
Yeah, we talk about franchise brands and their ability to scale, but it's got to work and it has to have staying power. And that's what I love about your story, and even the pauses, that it's still consistent.
And at the end of the day, I mean, we don't want any client to be sitting outside to feel uncomfortable. So there's things that we do. We offer resprays, and we always encourage them to call and say, if you're having a problem, call us. If you don't call us, we can't help you with your problem. So, we had a client this year that had a really difficult time. Like, she had ticks crawling on her Adirondack chairs. And, it took us a month or so, but we got a hold of it. But we had to do repeat, repetitive show-ups over there just to get it under control, which also goes back to the integrated pest management and being able to offer up different potencies and different products that might work better.
And then that's a customer focus. I remember when I was out with Kurt, and whether it's being called to come spray before a birthday party, even though that may not be in what you agree to, you do it, and you're trying to encourage. Yep. That's great. That's great. So let's talk personal growth and balance. So you started with 3 babies, the twin or 4, the puppy, the business,
and Kurt,
and Kurt, and the twins. So you've really grown and raised, and launched Oh Dear while raising your twin daughters. How has blending family and your business and entrepreneurship and leading together shaped your how you run the business or leadership style?
Well, so maybe 5 years ago or so, it was definitely during COVID because we had our annual event down in our South Shore location, their garage, big garage. Everybody was
6 feet apart,
20 feet, and that's when sort of Kurt and I split. We were both running both businesses, and to be honest, that wasn't working at all.
Right.
And so we decided that Kurt would go run the location and I would focus on the franchise. Right. And it's worked out really well, I think, to the point where somebody recently, an old friend of Kurt's, reached out to him and said, I'm interested in a franchise. And Kurt goes, I can't talk to you about that. You've got to call Jeremy.
Good.
So that's worked out really well. But as far as and sitting at the dinner table at one point, the girls put their foot down and they said, there's no more oh dear talk at the dinner table.
Right. And have you been true to that?
We have been.
It's good. That's
we
great.
Have been.
Well, that I mean, I'm sure they hear great lessons, but it's also right.
You can't intrude on family time.
Yeah, you can't always do it. But I love the point you got to where, and you referenced it. Your business that Kurt's running is really essentially a company-owned location, correct?
Yes.
The original.
Yeah.
And you're running the franchise business. And that's any team growing, right? Figure out who,
Yeah, what you
growing,
like, what you don't like.
Who's good at this, who's good at that.
Yes.
Great. So, all right, so people say you're a competitive golfer. Is that true?
Sure.
All right.
I'm competitive in any sport I do. How about that?
I was just going to say, how does that affect, your entrepreneurial mindset? So you bring that competitiveness to the business.
Yeah, it is just like sports.
Yeah.
I mean, you always want to win. You've got to dig deep sometimes and, power through. But yeah, I mean, it's just my nature, I guess.
Yeah, and a mindset, right?
Yes.
It is a mindset. Yeah, and you have to power through some tough days,
yes,
right?
You
and
do.
Low points.
Yeah.
What do you fall back on?
I fall back on the group that I work with. I fall back on exercise for a little mental health.
Self-care.
Self-care. Yeah. Go home and complain to Kurt sometimes. And the next day is a new day.
Who has less problems or more challenges?
Yeah.
No, I think that's wonderful advice, right? Because we all have to step back and get a deep breath. And I think your team is looking for that. They're looking for you to do that and to model that. So that's good stuff. Let's talk the future of franchising. You've spoken here at Babson several times. Been on a lot of panels. How do you see, what you guys are doing on sustainability and friendliness or shaping opportunities in franchising? Are you seeing more of that? Is it something that has,
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't really speak if you're talking about franchising in general. I think I've read where, fast food companies are switching from like seed oils to olive oil and avocado oil.
Right.
So I think that mindset is slowly setting in. I mean, for us, we're going to continue to, stick with the all natural. And I do, like I said, it grows every year. And what I can tell you is when Kurt started this business, back in 2007, 2008, the availability of 25B products was not like it was today.
What's 25B for our audience?
All natural, like food grade.
Gotcha.
Food grade.
Gotcha.
So, and most recently we've noticed, I'd say over the past year, there is a plethora of all natural, especially tick and mosquito control products that are coming out, which tells me that obviously there's an increase in demand from the consumers for those types of products.
And they want it.
They want it.
Great. If you could give one piece of advice to entrepreneurs who are either launching or planning to launch a business or have a concept already and are considering franchising to grow, what would that advice be?
Reach out to other franchisors.
Yeah.
Educate yourself as much as possible. I found the franchising industry to be very helpful and friendly.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be afraid to reach out to anybody.
And share ideas.
And
there's a lot of different ways to do it, right? The stories. Tariq Farid, founder of Edible Brands, famously, told the story that he had one unit, and many people say don't franchise with one, but he had a customer want a franchise, and he says, I didn't know anything about franchising, but we did it and built around it. And others, you can start when you have 10 units or however many you had. So there's a lot of different ways, but I think you're right. Talk to as many people as possible.
Yeah, and don't have that, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, because Kurt and I say that all the time. We're like, I wish we were like at this place 10 years ago, but we weren't. Yeah. So you just got to suck it up and move forward. And
move on to the next shot.
Keep moving. Yes.
All right, you ready for some, lightning round questions? All right, let's go. One word. You can hit pass if you want, but I know you're too much of a competitor. One word that describes O'Dear's culture.
Familial. Family. Familial. Yes.
I saw that at the curling event.
Yeah.
That's really important, right? Because you're going to all have to get through some things together.
Yes.
All right. Favorite outdoor activity?
Golf.
All right, coffee or drink order before a busy day with franchisees?
Well, I've recently switched and learned to like black coffee.
You have? Okay.
Yes. I
Is it
never
Dunkin'?
thought it would.
Does it matter? We're in New England.
I know it's definitely not Dunkin'.
Oh, definitely not
sorry.
Dunkin'. Okay, no problem. Is there a brand or a concept or a company outside of your world that you're really impressed by or, see doing some good things?
Good question. Like a franchise brand?
It doesn't have to be franchise. Even a brand, maybe something that, sports related or, with your daughters. Because we're passionate about, brands and scaling businesses. So anything come to mind?
I would say lacrosse brands.
Lacrosse brands,
yeah. They're becoming very women focused.
Good.
And a lot of the sponsorships are, all women that we've watched in college.
And now they're taking control of what the product should look
how
like.
How they should play.
Yeah.
And
we had we have an event here called Rocket Pitch, where students can come and they have 3 minutes to pitch an idea, and they get feedback from the audience, but they can't answer the questions. And a young female student entrepreneur who's a cyclist came out and pitched an idea for woman-focused cycling gear because there wasn't any that fit the way she.
Oh, cool.
It was very cool, and she had the stats on growing segment.
Yeah.
Anyway, love it. All right, so let's see. Most underrated leadership skill in your mind?
Good question. I was recently told by our head of Fran Dev that I was a good listener.
Good listener.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kudos to me.
Kudos to you. I think that's, I know I need to be a better listener, but, we interviewed a CEO founder, actually Soumya Farid Silber, and she said the same exact thing to a group of students. Just be a good listener. All different perspectives, right? So
you can't help if you don't listen.
Yeah, that is true. One thing you always check when meeting a new franchisee. We talked a lot about new franchisees, but what's the one thing you're kind of looking for?
Looking for? Or
you check, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I will refer back to Jeremy and his notes in our CRM. Sometimes I'll Google the person or check out their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. You find out they're going to be a partner, right?
Correct.
Typical franchise agreement is, how long? 10 years, right?
Yes.
So it's like a marriage.
Yes.
So, okay, got it.
Yeah.
All right. Who is there a person or that's had the greatest impact on you as a leader?
Yes, I would probably say an old boss, who's a really good friend of mine. He was a great listener. And he knew that fine line between being your boss, but also being a great friend. And so he was able to, he was amazing. If he wanted someone to, and this is probably a bad example, but if he wanted someone that he didn't really want to fire, but he knew they were better off somewhere else, he somehow got them to figure that out themselves.
Right. And it helps them in the end.
It does. So, yeah, he was probably the guy to talk about.
And that sounds like impactful on a lot of different fronts.
Yes.
Well, how about, any last words of wisdom for future entrepreneurs or franchisees that you want to share that you've learned over the years that keeps you going, or what would you share?
I would just say never give up. I mean, there was a time a few years back when, I spoke about the not so great franchisees that, I wanted to throw my hands in the air and say, oh, I'm done with this. But just take a pause, take a breath, maybe reevaluate your situation and do some of the things that maybe we had to do, like take a pause and selling franchises and get our back offices and and reach out to people and ask for help.
I love it because I know that you feel the pressure, right? We want to get to 50 units, or we want to get to 100, and I think it takes a self-awareness and a lot of strength to put things on hold and get yourself ready for the next chapter.
Yes.
So after that bad shot, or for you, it's probably not a bad round.
Yes,
take a deep breath. Put it behind you.
Yes.
Well, Colleen, it's so wonderful to have you back at Babson. You're a part of the family. Wishing you and Kurt and the team all the success in the world, and we're really grateful that you spend time and giving back to our students as well as future leaders. So thanks so much for being on Stars of Franchising.
Thank you for having me. Great to see you again, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Colleen.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Stars of Franchising.
Stars of Franchising was produced at Babson College, engineered by Travis Gray. Karen Soa is our guest coordinator, and music by Ralph Taylor.
If you like Stars of Franchising, be sure to review us wherever you get your podcasts and spread the word and share these stories any way you can.